Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I am Morgan, and today I'm jumping right in. I got some good shit today. I'm happy. I'm excited. Have you ever looked up from work or crafting or whatever and realized that an hour had passed and it felt like 15 minutes? And no, I am not talking about doom scrolling on social media. That is not what we're talking about today, okay? Or have you ever had a spell or project just pour out of you like it already existed and you were just tapping into its essence and letting it guide you, okay? That is flow state. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. It is pure magic. Flow state is pure magic. It has been coming up a lot for me lately. My husband and I are cinephiles. I hope I pronounced that correctly. We're movie buffs, but I just love the sophistication of the term cinephile because it sounds a lot better than we like to watch a lot of movies. Okay. Anyway, we watched F1 last weekend. There was a whole thing in there about flow state. There is a song on my playlist, my favorite playlist that I listen to every single morning to get myself motivated for the day. That song is called Flow State. And so this is something that's really been coming up for me. And when I was like, okay, and I kept having all these synchronicities, I was like, all right, why does flow state keep coming up for me? And so I dove down into it. And the result of that is today's podcast episode. I'm so excited. Okay. So today's episode, I want to help you see flow as more than just a productivity hack. Okay. For witches, flow is a magical current that we can ride to align with our purpose, fuel our spells, and add magic to the mundane. And I'm going to talk about my 3 types of flow and how they impact my magic and give tips on how to find your flow. But because we're witches, I realized that I have 3 different flow states, and that each of these flow states is actually part of the manifestation process or the magical process. And so if you can tap into that for yourself, or if you can create those flow states for yourself, then you can use it for your magic. And that's what I realized in analyzing my different flow states. So let's start with what is flow. Nerdy definition time, okay? Flow is the mental state where your brain enters peak focus, creativity, and productivity. Time warps, distractions vanish, and you're fully immersed in what you're doing. Okay. Of course, that's like an overall definition, but that's like the neurological definition of flow. Okay. Or a flow state. For witches, flow is a magical current. It's when energy aligns, intuition sharpens, and your craft becomes effortless. I love that. I love that so much. It's becoming one with the energy and the world around you. So that is tapping into flow, energetic flow, but we're going deeper than that. We're going deeper than just being aware of the energy around you and tapping into it for magic or manifestation or whatever. We are going into flow states today. And yes, there are so many flow states. In fact, I only have 3. You may have 17. And your flow states may be different than my flow states. They probably are different than my states. But what I want this episode to help you with is to recognize your flow states. And because we are witches, and it is probably a goal of most witches, I know it is for me and a lot of my Ink Spirit Coven members, is to just infuse magic into your everyday life. And tapping into flow and figuring out your flow states, and then figuring out how to use your flow states for manifestation, that's what living magically is. That is the easiest way to just be a magical bitch, you know? All right. For me, I've identified 3 flow states, and I've realized that all of them are magical and can help my magical process, okay? So all 3 of my states have different feelings to them, and I'm going to try my best to describe them, even though they're weird, y'all, okay? It's weird. But the first one is my workflow state, which I call the productive witch, okay? This is where, for me, I feel like I go into a zone where I can get 10 hours worth of work done in 5. Like, I look up and I'm like, oh my God, it's lunchtime. I've gotten an entire day's worth of work done. Holy shit. Okay. Now, this state comes with a lot of tools around it to tap into that productivity flow, and that for productivity flow state for me, the productive witch flow state. Okay. I use a timer for Pomodoros, generally speaking. Pomodoro, if you want to Google it, it's a time management organizational tool where you set timers for like 20 to 40 minutes, hyper focus on like one thing that you're doing. And then when the timer goes off, you take like a 5-minute break, and then you do it again and hyper focus again, and then take another 5-minute break. And then after like 3 Pomodoros, you take an extended break. Okay. I learned this in a time management thing probably a decade or more ago. I use them at work. I have never thought of using them outside of work until I had a burnout session with Megan Winkler. And then I was like, well, I guess I could use Pomodoros for other things as well, like creating or setting timers for, kind of goofing off for a while and then, coming back to focus. Anyway, but that's what I have to do in order to get into this productive flow. I do set timers. I have a killer focus playlist. Yeah, I have several ones. I think I've mentioned them before on the podcast, depending on my level of, oh shit, what do I have to get done? My base level is like Celtic music. I think it's just like Celtic relaxation music. And then I have like final boss music. Like my do not fuck with me is either like Skrillex, which is electronic music, or I even have a boss playlist, which is actually the bosses of video games. So it's like video game music, but for some reason it just does it for me. It like helps me hyper focus. I do have to put my phone on silent and lose it, maybe in another room. And I have to tell everyone around me that I'm entering a state of I need to get shit done. Please do not fuck with me until you see me come out of the office. Okay. What I realized in this state, in this particular flow state, time passes by super fucking slowly. It's almost like you're able to manipulate time because you're so hyper focused on getting things done, that it does. It's like you've packed 10 hours of work into 5 hours. Of course, a to-do list is always there. But for me, magically, this is like I have direct control over my power. I have direct link from what I want to get done and what I can get done. There is a straight line from point A to point B for me. Okay. So if you were thinking about this in terms of magic and manifestation, this is how you want to set your intentions. This is the state you want to enter when you are going from, I want this, to I'm having this, to declaring it to the universe. Okay. This is what you want to try and replicate. Okay. And I started using this. I started taking this flow state, kind of performing experiment. I love performing experiments. And look, you guys, I understand I said that I just went weekend before last or last weekend to go see the movie, and this had been coming up. Like, this is how fast I process and perform experiments, is they may be like day experiments. Okay. And if something works, it works. And it was amazing at how quickly this worked, is taking this productive state that I'm usually in at work and applying it to my magic. Okay. So that state is the state that I now use for setting intentions. Okay. And yes, there are organizational things which I 100% go into. Yes, I do. I had to check my notes, you guys. I do go into. So at work, there is a set when I'm in the productive witch flow state. There's a checklist, and I have the checklist, like the timer, the Pomodoros, putting my phone on silent. I have a similar checklist or something. There are tools and organization that go into this type of flow state. Okay. So you put that structure in place so that once you're in that little container where you've put your boundaries up, and they're temporary, they're hey, don't fuck with me right now. I'm getting shit done. But once you've put up this container and these boundaries, inside of it, you can just go. Just do it, But this flow state, you have direct access to control and your power. So you are controlling things. You are setting intentions. You're doing it. Okay. Flip my book over. Okay. So my second flow state that I have come to realize that I have is my creative flow state. And I call this my Muse Witch. Okay. So in this state, it's like I'm tapped into the energy of the thing that I'm creating, whether it's jewelry, whether it's a drawing, whether it's social media posts. It's like I'm tapped into the energy of the thing that I'm creating, and I'm allowing it to guide me. I'm allowing it to say, this is who I am, and I'm tapping into that energy. Okay. So for me, it's like I know exactly what beads I need to be picking out if I'm creating jewelry or making pendulums. I know exactly what colors to use if I'm drawing or painting or tattooing my husband. Intuition is high, and it's not like, it's such a weird feeling, and like trying to describe a feeling like that sits inside of you is so weird. So it's intuition, but it's like I'm open to something else and I'm allowing that to guide me. Okay. So what this does, this flow state has taught me to trust the process and to let go and see where it takes me. Okay. This is the perfect flow state to tap into when you are creating your spell components. Okay. So let's say you're performing a spell, and you've tapped into that productive witch state for setting your intentions. Now you want to craft a spell bag, a spell jar, a vision board, something. This is the state I tap into now to create that spell component. It's like I sit there and say, okay, spell bag, spell jar, vision board, you're created. Now tell me who you are. And then you just trust it. You trust whatever comes out of you. You don't judge it, because you know that you're tapped into the energy of the thing that wants to be created. Okay. So that's how I use it in my magical process. This is the flow state that I mimic within myself. I get that feeling, and I recreate that feeling of creating jewelry or creating, artwork or whatever it is. I recreate that in my spell, in my ritual, while I'm creating a component or something to carry with me or something to throw in the backyard or whatever it is. Okay. So that's my second one, is creative. I call it my Muse Witch. The third is a spiritual flow that I have come to realize that I also have. This is what I call my channel witch, because that's literally what it feels like. I feel like I am an open vessel. When I am tapped into this spiritual flow state, my hearing literally gets knocked out, and it sounds like I'm underwater. It sounds like everything around me, like we are all underwater. And literally, it looks like around me, things are going in slow motion. It is the weirdest fucking sensation. And I know I just said literally, and like, you're probably like, oh, but metaphorically. And I'm like, no, but like, it's almost like in a movie when someone stops time or slows time and they're moving, but everything else around them is like in super slow-mo. That's what happens to me. And my hearing gets knocked out. Like I said, it sounds like everything's underwater. It just gets very muffled. And time stands still. And this is the state that happens when I am downloading something bigger than me. I am tapped into something bigger than me. I am tapped into universal consciousness. I am tapped into someone else's energy to give a message to them. I am tapped into someone else's guides to give them a message. This is what happens to me when I do tarot readings. This is what happens to me when I meditate sometimes. This is what happens to me when something hits me and it's like this is a message from beyond. This is a message from something bigger. Okay. So this is the same type of energy that I try and trigger when I'm at the end of my spell and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, what are my next steps? Please let me know. And, I open myself up and hopefully this state is triggered, this spiritual flow state. And that is when I receive messages or I receive instructions for what to do next. Because, when you perform spells, you can perform the spell all day long, but if you don't take the steps in this realm, in physical reality, your spell's not going to go anywhere. Okay. So I also leave myself open for specifically for instructions from my guides, my higher self. And then that's how I know I'm getting them, is my hearing gets knocked out and I enter this, what feels like an underwater state. And that's how I know the next things that I'm either going to hear something or I'm going to get a vision in my head, or I'm just going to have an idea pop into my head, or I'm going to hear something on the radio or the television or something, and I know to pay attention. But this is my spiritual flow state, or what I also call my channel witch state. Yes. So these states might feel different, but they all have one thing in common. They are magical as hell, and I wish I could stay in them all the time. But alas, that is not the case. For me, one of the biggest things that I have to shed in order to consistently be able to tap into these flow states is the guilt or shame that I have with not always living in these flow states. I have a lot of that. I think that, oh my gosh, I'm a witch. Number one, I've been a witch for 25 more years, a self-identified witch, but I teach witchcraft. I teach in the coven. I teach here on the podcast. I teach on YouTube. So I'm like, I should be in a flow state at all points. And I'm not. I'm human too. I'm human. So there are times when I struggle with, oh my gosh, I should be in a flow state right now, but I'm not. What the fuck? So I can tell you that shedding the shame, shedding the guilt, resting, you don't always have to be turned on. You know what I mean? Like a light switch. I don't mean like, ooh, but I mean like a light switch. You don't always have to be turned on. And in fact, the last couple of weeks have taught me that having my light switch turned off is just as beneficial as having the light switch turned on. I have really, truly understood the power of rest. I think that's why the last few weeks have happened. And I went dark on a lot, like social media. I didn't come to work a couple of days, and all of that not only helped me recharge my battery, but it helped me figure stuff out like this. Like, it's almost like when you occupy your brain with something else, that is another point for divine inspiration to hit. And that's another part of flow. They even did a whole episode about it on The Big Bang Theory. I think Sheldon was trying to figure out string theory at one point. So he decided to go and do like mundane things to occupy his brain to free up for like divine inspiration, to free up his brain to focus on string theory. And let me tell you, it works. It really, truly works when you consciously rest. That's like a whole nother flow state of opening yourself to receiving instead of pushing. And I know I've talked about that so much. It's, it's about flipping into that divine feminine and allowing rather than pushing like divine masculine, But that's the first thing that I had to do, was really truly shed the limiting belief that I had to always be in a flow state because I'm a witch. Okay. Yes, I'm a witch. You're a witch. We're all witches, but we're also human, and we have up times, we have down times, we have all of that. So it's all about honoring that and shedding the shame or the guilt. Okay. So why is a flow state important for witches? All right. Number one, it is where magic happens naturally. Okay. When you're in a flow state, you're aligned with your intention and you are turning you're turning energy into magic. You're tuning into the energy flow around you and directing it for something. And that's what living magically is. So you don't even have to be doing it in a ritual or in a formal spell. Like I was saying before, like tapping into the different states when you're casting a spell. If you can just tap into the states and you know which state is associated with which magical process, then you don't even have to be doing a formal spell. You can just tap into that state. You can tap into the productive witch state to send your intentions into the world. And then you can tap into the spiritual flow or the channel witch state to receive guidance, But flow state, this is where magic happens naturally. Okay. Number two, flow state is important for witches because it is your direct access to your power. It's like a shortcut. Like I said, it goes from point A to point B. You're not traveling down a side mission somewhere, going to the grocery store to fucking get donuts. You're going from here to here. You're tapping directly into your power, into your magic. Direct access. Okay. Number three, flow state gives you a sacred space for your soul. It's like a witchy home. When I'm in flow state, and it does not matter if it is here at the office, if I'm in my office working on mundane business shit, okay? If I am tapped into my flow state, my heart, my soul is at home. I am in a witchy sacred space, okay? And that is how you turn the mundane into the magical. Okay. And then number four, it speeds up manifestation. If you can identify these flow states within you and what they could mean for you magically and what they can do for you magically, then you've just unlocked another puzzle piece of your magical manifestation of how to go from this is what I want to having it. Okay. Tips on flow state. Okay. Number one, flow state is a magical practice. Okay. Yes, it is something that you tap into, but it is a practice. The more that you do it, and I can 100% confirm this, the more that you practice your flow state, the easier it gets to tap into. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I always forget this for work. So I start to get to a place where my to-do list is massive. My to-do list is always massive. I run a fucking business, okay? But I will get to this point where my to-do list is overwhelming and then burnout starts to set in. And why I don't do my Pomodoros and tap into the productive witch flow state when my to-do list is small, why I wait for it to become like a massive Godzilla size to-do list before I do this. I don't know why. It's like you conveniently forget. It's almost the same as when you have a baby. You forget how painful it was, and then you go and you have another one. So I'm working now on like, oh, my to-do list is only at baby Godzilla size. Let me go ahead and tap into productive witch, get into that flow state, get shit done so that it doesn't become big Godzilla. That's what I'm working on right now, currently, as this airs. Yeah. But flow state is a magical practice, so practice it. And this whole episode has shown you that even mundane things like your flow state at work can be translated into magic. Okay, so practice on your mundane, practice on your to-do list, practice on your house cleaning chore list. What kind of magical flow state can you get into cleaning your house, getting your to-do list done, at the grocery store while you're shopping? What other flow states do you have? Because you may not just have productive work and then creative and then spiritual. I want you to find your flow states after listening to this episode. I want you to consciously start tapping into, okay, where in my life and what I'm doing can I manipulate time? Can I get 10 hours worth of work done in 5 hours? What does that feel like? How can I replicate that? Once you identify your flow states, I promise you, it makes tapping into them so much easier, but it simplifies life and adds just that little bit more magic to the mundane. Okay? No one absolutely loves getting their to-do list done if it's massive. I mean, I love crossing off things on my to-do list, but when you're staring at a massive to-do list or a massive grocery list or a massive chore list, no one gets happy about that. But knowing, oh shit, I'm about to tap into my witchy flow state, that's going to add a little bit more happiness and joy to it, which will help you get through it faster too. Okay. Another tip, protect and set your flow state just like you are casting a circle. Okay. Once you've identified your flow states, whatever they are, and I'm sure that a lot of you, if you have a mundane job or if you have you probably are like, oh yeah, no, I have hit that thing at work. What was the energetic container that you put it in? What were the structural things that you put around it in order to get into that flow state? Okay. So what I mean by this is, for me, even here at work, I light a candle because I can. I don't know if all of you can, but maybe even if you just have like a little battery operated tea light, like if you can't light a candle like at your cubicle or your desk, get one of those little, just make it symbolic. Anyway, I light a candle and incense. Okay. I have my playlist depending on what I'm doing. So music is a huge thing for me. I have my timers. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I generally ground down. So I don't wear shoes. Again, business owners, so super easy to do that. But I ground my energy down, and then I take a few deep breaths. And this is how I set my space. And it's basically like casting a circle, but I am setting up the structure around this flow state so that once the structure is up, I'm good, I'm protected, I'm grounded, I'm centered in that flow state, and I can just let it fly. I can ride that flow wave, okay? So protect and set your flow state just like you are casting a circle. Even if you are at work, even if you are at the grocery store, ground before you walk in the grocery store, take a big deep breath, and go, you know what? I'm going to hyper focus on this list. Just, put blinders on and stick to the list, whatever it is. Okay. That's going to be building your flow kit. Okay. That's what I'm calling it. And for those not watching, I'm doing little bunny quotations in the air, flow kit. What is your personal flow kit? How do you get into that flow? Is it music? Is it grounding? Is there a particular pen that you use? Do you line your pens and your highlighters up in a certain way? Do you have a stack of Post-it notes? Like, what are the things that you set up in order to trigger that flow state for you? And like, if you're a writer, if you're a painter, is there a certain way that you lay everything out? Do you cleanse the room first? Like, what's in your personal flow kit? Okay. How do you trigger that state for being productive or being creative or being spiritual or whatever it is that you've identified as your flow states? Okay. So that leaves us at the end of this today, which is, I just have a few questions for you to think about. Okay. Where do you have flow states and how can you have them more? What steps go into your flow states, creating your flow states? What do they feel like for you? That's a big one, okay? Flow states have a feel. And even if it's like, I feel like I just manipulated time, that's a feeling, But flow states have a feeling. So how do they feel to you? And then I invite you to track your flow states and practice consciously tapping into them. If you were to track your flow states too, because of course, your flow states, like I have to work every day, but there are times and days when my flow states are a hell of a lot more productive. And then there's times and days and weeks where my flow states are not as productive. And I've even started tracking those. That's how I found out I'm really good around the full moon, which I think this episode is going to come out on or near the full moon, which is why I'm super high energy right now, because I get more energy. I get more productive. I have a fuck ton more energy during or leading up to a full moon and for about a week afterwards. So if you were to track your flow states, you'll find ebbs and flows in your natural energetic state, which is just learning more about yourself. Yeah. But practice, I invite you for the next week or just period from this point forward to figure out your flow states, what they are, what they feel like, what triggers them, how you can step into them, and then how can you use those for your magic? Or when you're in that flow state, can you use it for magic and manifestation? Because just living magically is so easy. It's so much easier than, putting up the circle, doing a whole ritual for an hour with this step and this step and this step. If that is what floats your boat, though, and that's what makes you feel witchy as hell, then by all means do it. But for me, I don't have that kind of time. So if I can manifest on the fly and perform magic because I'm just automatically tapped into an energetic flow and my flow state, that's so much easier for me to just do it then, So that's what I have for you all today. That is today's podcast episode. The Patreon bonus content is some of my biggest flow triggers. I'm going to share even more. I know I shared, the candle, the incense, that earlier, but I'm going to go into more detail in the Patreon bonus content. With the paid Patreon tier purchase. One of them, it doesn't matter. I have a $5 tier, $9 tier, $13 tier. You get access, even with the $5 tier, to the bonus podcast content, and you get a shout out. So I want to thank Karen for being my newest paid Patreon member. Thank you so much. You can access all past content, all of that at my Patreon, which is at Ink Goddess Creations. So patreon.com/InkGoddessCreations. I want to thank you all for being here, for being podcast listeners. I love doing the podcast. This is actually my hobby, but it gives me a place to share my crazy self with everyone, but share my journey, which has been super helpful for the last year of chronicling things and seeing where I've been performing experiments. So I love it. But I love being able to connect with you all too. So please share, subscribe, pass the podcast on to your other witchy friends. But even just commenting or liking, subscribing, all of that shows the algorithm that, hey, this podcast is liked. We'll push it out to more magically curious people. So thank you all for being here and for giving me a platform to just be myself. And I will see you all next week. Bye. If you're looking for a magical community where you can just be yourself, check out my Ink Spirit Coven. The Coven is an online learning circle for eclectic witches who want to learn new witchcraft practices and how to easily incorporate magic into their daily lives, all while being supported on their personal spiritual journey. And you'll have me as your magical mentor, sharing my knowledge, answering questions, and facilitating the online community. Head to inkspirit.com to learn more and join. And if unique witchcraft supplies made by witches for witches is just what you need, head to my store, inkgoddesscreations.com, to see what we have to enhance your magical practice. We also have the Ink Goddess Creations box, a monthly subscription of magic mail filled with exclusive items that fit a magical theme. Head to the site to see this month's theme and sneak peeks.